Now that we've added an application to our catalog, let's make sure that all of the appropriate setup is in place so that when we begin to add users, we can start associating them to security policies and applications. So the first thing that we'll want to do is create a role. Now, a role, think of it like a bucket of applications. A user can have multiple roles. Someone can be a manager and also in marketing, for example. So when I create a new role, let's just call it marketing. And you'll see that I only have one app added. So I'll check this one here. Now everyone that is associated to the marketing role will have access to Salesforce, for example. Now, additionally, what we'll want to do after we save this is create a security policy for these people as well. So I'll go to security policies and create a new one for my marketing users. When creating a security policy, we have the ability to control things like password expiration, the amount of passwords that OneLogin is going to remember when a user attempts to reset their password, and the length and complexity of those passwords that we're going to enforce on the users in this group. We can also choose to disable the ability of a browser to attempt to save passwords when users are navigating throughout the internet. And we can also allow or disallow users to add company apps to the company portal, and also allow or disallow users to add their own personal apps to their personal app portal. We can also control how users will reset their passwords, for example. We can give users the ability to reset their password via email or via any second factor that we choose to allow for this policy. We can also control the amount of invalid login attempts before we either force a user to cool off or to be locked out and reset by an admin. Or we can also boot people due to the length of their session or inactivity. And this is the area where we can control the multi-factor authentication methods that users may or may not be able to use. So if you want your users in this group to be required to use a one-time password, we would select this box and the authentication factor or factors that you want to allow for this policy. And to add an available factor to be selected, you'll simply go to Settings and Authentication Factors and select the appropriate one for your policy. And in this area, we can also whitelist IP addresses. A good use case of this would be only wanting your employees to be able to log in from the public IP of your office network. So for example, if I put an IP address here, only users arriving from that IP address will be allowed to log into OneLogin if they are a part of this policy. So I'll save this policy. And now we need to apply this to a group of people. So I'll go to Groups and create a marketing group. Now we could apply that policy to other groups of people if we'd like to, but we're just going to apply it straight across to the marketing group. We'll apply that security policy here. And this is where we would come in and determine who might be a group admin, so someone who has a little bit more privileges than your average user and a little bit less than a super admin to handle those day-to-day admin tasks. And this is where we could also come in and manually add group members to this group, but we'll handle that in an automated fashion a bit later. Now that you're ready to add users into OneLogin, we'll navigate to Users and All Users. Now this is the manual method for adding one user at a time. Of course, there are automated options if you have a directory that you're integrating with. But let's create one from scratch here. And there are two required fields. So we'll say John Stevens, filling out the two required fields. We'll give him an email address and a user name, which will be the same or can be the same if you so choose. And we'll fill out basic information for him, like who is his manager? And that's going to be, in this case, John Smith, the marketing manager, because he's in marketing. The title is associate. His company is Acme. All right. So this is how we'll fill out a basic user profile when someone is hired, if this is not going to be driven by an HR system or a directory that you already have in place. So we'll save this user. And now we have the option to give him applications or choose how he's going to authenticate. So we can see that John at this point isn't assigned to any groups or security policies because we've yet to set up any mappings which would do this in an automated fashion. So again, doing this in a manual way, I could assign him to the marketing group, which will give him the marketing policy. And I can see that because we don't have any directories connected yet, when this user logs into OneLogin, they will be authenticated against OneLogin's cloud directory. I can also see what applications this user has access to, which are none at this point. But as soon as I give him access to a role or associate him to a role that has applications associated to it, he will be given permission to use that application. So now that we've added John to a role, we can see that because Salesforce was associated with the marketing role, he has been given access to Salesforce. So we can also keep track of everything that John does via the activity section here if we choose to go through a security audit or just like to keep tabs on our users. Also, as an admin, I have the option to either assume this user and view OneLogin through the eyes of his account, or I can change his password for him. Of course, users will have the self-service option at the login portal, but if that's not an option or they have been locked out, this is where an admin will come to change an individual's password. Or in the case of this being a brand new user, for example, a new employee, we can send an invitation to that user's email to then log into OneLogin for the first time.